Meeting under the campaign.
Perfect, just like that.
I don't think so.
Have a different accent.
I'll pass.
Not St. Paul. And you know something? It's like anything else. How many
Yeah,
people
our trailer is going to see one, that's gonna last, I'll have to take it, look at it. No, just the actual metal bracket that fixes the screws, like brick and mortar. Not getting like the bracket. At least I mean, the bracket, well, here's the same big bracket.
Seven o'clock, we'll call a special work session meeting of August 1st, 2016 in order. We do have a quorum, public forum. Individuals may address the city council about items on the agenda or not on the agenda. Speakers are required to state their name and address for council records and limit the remarks to 3 minutes or less. Speakers are requested to frame their comments around items that fall within the authority of the city council. Generally, the city council will not take official action on items discussed at this time, but may place the item on file, take the matter under advisement, refer the matter to a staff or committee for future report, or direct the matter to be placed on an upcoming agenda. Anyone wish to speak?
Table.
Dan Warner, 503rd Avenue Southeast. I'd just like the city council to bring up, us letting us have chickens in town again. Talked to a couple of you and just want you to reconsider it and bring it back up for vote again. That's it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what was your address again?
503rd Avenue Southeast.
Southeast, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Robin Hensel, 807 First Street Southeast. I may not get through all this, but before I start, I want to urge you to fix this tree that's at Pine Grove Park. I just saw it today. There's only one protector of it. Years ago, I asked you guys to protect this tree because it's getting really beat up. And as you can see, it's taken a lot more beating in the last couple of years. And I don't know, I'm going to ask that your city parks department or whoever takes care of these trees do a better job on behalf of the taxpayers, because these are historic trees. Tonight, I'm lodging a formal complaint with the city of Little Falls, who is the local franchising authority for cable television under the new Time Warner, formerly Charter Communications. I have a communication here from Bob Vos of Kennedy Graven Chartered, dated August 8th, 2012, to the city. It reads, although Minnesota State Law, Chapter 238 addresses cable matters, franchise renewals are governed by federal law. Under federal law, cable company must request renewal in writing during the 6-month period from 36 to 30 months prior to expiration. The current franchise was granted in 2000 for a term of 4 years with an extension of 11 years if Charter upgraded the system. The franchise expires in 2015 because Charter upgraded. Accordingly, Charter will request renewal of its franchise in the next few months. Within 6 months of that request, the city must commence a proceeding that gives the public notice and opportunity to participate. The purpose of the proceeding is to review the company's franchise compliance and past performance, identify the community's future cable-related needs and interests. This review is the source of the city's leverage. The city is currently operating without a franchise agreement, and I think in violation of the 1984 Cable Communications Act. The Federal Communications Commission and local franchising authorities are responsible for enforcing a variety of cable regulations. The Commission expects cable operators to follow all of its rules and regulations. And some of those read under 47 U.S. Code 541. No cable service without franchise exception under prior law, except to the extent provided in paragraph 2 and subsection F of this section. A cable operator may not provide cable service without a franchise. Paragraph 2 and 1 shall not require any person lawfully providing cable service without a franchise on July 1st, 1984 to obtain a franchise unless the franchising authority so requires. I have this Article 7 of Cable TV franchise from the City Council packet that deleted, it says effective September 17th, 1984, amended the city code to remove the text of the Cable TV chapter franchise from this chapter. So I am officially filing a complaint, and I will be following up with Cable Television Charter. I am a valued customer, and I also will be following up with the State Attorney General.
Anyone else wish to speak? Final call, anyone else wish to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on to council information items. Urban chickens. John?
Yeah, since Greg is off this evening, I'll bring up what he found. The item came up back in 2011 to discuss chickens, ordinances for urban chickens in the city of Little Falls. At that time, it did pass by a 5-3 vote, and then it was vetoed by the mayor veto. At the time afterwards, it was brought back and did fail to meet enough votes to bring it back for or to pass it over to the mayor's veto. So it was discussed previously. So currently, our ordinances state that farm animals aren't allowed in the city limits. So for those that do raise chickens, they would need to be outside of the city limits. I think some of the council members have had some contact from residents about bringing this issue back for discussion. I think from here, it's up to you for discussion if you want to live with the decision that was made 5 years ago or bring it back for.
Ask the people that voted no how many years ago. If you're here, why did you vote no? I guess I don't know if you know this or not here or not. If you voted yes, why did you vote yes?
I think I voted yes, if I remember right. It's been a while. I saw no harm in it. There was some discussion brought up that how would you monitor? Because there's a lot of things that would have to come into place to have the chickens in town where it's actually diseases are passed on, annoying to neighbors. Some people don't want to look over and see chickens or hear them. So I do remember the mayor vetoing it. I think the next time around, what did he need after veto 7/8? Yeah, it just didn't quite make it. I mean, so, I know the first round I voted yes to have it, but truthfully I can't remember what I voted the second time around.
I've been here about 7 years, and of all the issues that we faced over that period of time, I've had more phone calls on chickens than on any other issue. I did have 2 calls that were very vigorously in favor of them. However, one decided in Swanville, the other in Freedom. Everybody in town was violently against it, not just against them. You could sense the hatred in their voice. The first time it came up, I voted in favor of it, based upon Hannah's performance. Here's a young lady, I believe she was like in 9th or 10th grade. She did an astounding performance for the council. And I figured, good idea, let's try it. Got good people trying it. Well, suddenly the phone calls started coming. And like I say, it was pretty hectic for quite a while. And as I knew many of the people that have called and then considered their concerns, it's like, that's perhaps something that should be best left outside the city. And so I did not get in favor of it on the other side.
I've had a couple of residents stop in my office in favor of it and a phone call. I've discussed some with the chief, or also a couple of other officers. And the concern was, how do you monitor it? And their concern was, you could have 5 to 10 people that are doing a really good job with it, but if you end up with another 20 where we have to do a lot of monitoring and enforcing, then where are we stressing our lawmakers direct their attention? So I'm going to say, I hope to get this out somehow publicly, I want to hear from the residents on either side, just like Lauren did. Know where to find me and they know where to call me, but I've got no strong thoughts towards it other, I'd be in favor of it, but I'm really concerned about the added impact on our police department.
I think there's a way to do this right. And I remember reading what was going on back when Hannah was trying to do that, and at that time, would have been my personal opinion, why you want to farm, move out to the country. I think even in the last 5 years, there's been more of a focus on healthy eating and organic stuff. Plus, there's a family that I'm friends with, and I met him in Denver, where he lives now, just for a lunch. And we went in his backyard, and he had chickens, so he showed me his whole operation. Hens only, nice coop, so they have a place to go, yard fenced in, all requirements by the city of Denver. And I guess the people that supply the chickens are pretty good at taking roosters back. Apparently they're hard to tell the gender too early. And so when they get a little bit older, one morning one of them will make his noise and they'll take it back. So, I didn't find anything repulsive or offensive about his operation whatsoever. I just, my personal opinion has changed on them. I don't plan on having them myself, but if somebody wants to put the work in and having them, why not?
Anyone else? Thoughts, directions?
Do you remember what you had before? I would assume there was a fee to get a permit to do it. But if you had some violations, you lose your permit or not.
I don't think we got into the discussion that far.
There's gonna be a licensing issue, just like a dog license.
And it'd have to meet certain criteria, so the neighbors wouldn't see it, you'd have to have some kind of a barrier.
Well, there was a coop requirement, there was so many inches off the ground and so many square feet per chicken with a maximum, I think we have 10 chickens at that time.
So far away from neighbors'
So it'd
property.
be so far from property lines, so much enclosed area, and so much grazing area.
Is there a minimum amount of property you need to own, just so you don't get the setback?
Right. Heck, they could go on an 80 by 150 lot.
I think it's like Greg said, let's hear what people have to say about it. But then we still have to listen to our chief here and make a decision after that.
Well, that'd be my concern. How do you police it? How do you manage it? So you see, you have a whole lot of, and who knows how many people want to do it. But if there's a lot of them that want to raise chickens, that's a lot of time, like making sure that the ordinance are being met, neighbor complaints. Who's going to take care of that? You know, if they have our police force do that, I don't think that's a fair use of their time. Do we need to hire a animal inspector to, you know, go around and check that the coops, the setbacks and everything are where they're supposed to be, or that the lawn is, that their droppings and stuff are cleaned up so that it's not smelling up the neighbors if the wind's blowing in the wrong direction. I don't know.
We'll have to get a chicken coop for the coops.
Well, just like our animal now, you know, how many, what's our limit in town, is 2 dogs, correct? You know, how many people got way more than 2 dogs still?
And then you got the neighbor's dog that comes home with the chicken Saturday.
Well, if that happens, somebody did do something, right? Either the dog owner by not containing it, or the chicken owner by not having it fenced out.
So is there any direction that you want from us, or do you just ask that we wait on this and see if the public can provide any comment to it, and at which point we can bring it back for a discussion at a later time? There's plenty of examples of ordinances. I know there are plenty of communities in the state that do it. And there's ones that don't have any issues with it, and because they have responsible owners, or they're policing it really well. So, but there's a lot. I think there's good and bad on both sides. And I guess the staff will take any direction. Right.
Could we ask a couple other cities about our size? How's it going? Are you sorry you did it? Are you glad you did it?
I was just at a coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities conference, and there were a few, you know, a lot of communities that are at that conference are similar size to us, from some are a little bigger, a lot bigger like Rochester. Others are, you know, even smaller. But the couple that I did talk to, they said they didn't really have too much trouble with it, but there's a lot that just won't touch it at all. So I don't know. Being in a more rural part of the state than some of these other communities, you know, for Greater Minnesota City, but Rochester and communities around Rochester are not, they're not as rural as we would say. You know, it might be that they may have a different expectation of it in interaction with agriculture than we do. I know just half mile to a mile away from my own house, right outside the city limits, there's somebody selling eggs, so.
I know they're at the farmer's market, they're really good, there's, on the, you know, west of town on Fifth Avenue, there's 3 of them before you hit first mile. It's,
But then if we open it up to chickens,
then it'll be
then are we
the
going to open it up to someone who wants to have potbelly pigs, or ducks, or geese, or sheep, or I want a cow?
I want a cow to have my own milk.
You know, I
wanna
mean,
go with
that's
midnight
the other
oils.
aspect of it too. Are we, if
So
we do
it's-
it,
Where do you draw the line?
where do you stop? If you do
How
it
about
for
something
chickens,
about this? I mean,
Well,
I
size
would-
wise, 2 dogs would be about 6 chickens.
2 St. Bernards?
Big chickens. Turkeys.
I wouldn't mind hearing some from the public and bring it back for a work session again in 2 weeks and just discuss what we've heard from other people. That way at least we're taking a look at it rather than not having any interest in hearing. You guys all right with that?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Opt-out temporary family health care dwelling.
So the state just passed a statute allowing for the creation or permitting, I guess, of what they call temporary healthcare dwellings. These are highly regulated. There's a lot of stipulations around the application process and what's allowable, what isn't allowed. A lot of regulations set even on the building quality of the dwelling itself. And final provision is that cities can opt out. And you could bring this matter back for discussion at a later time if you want to. It doesn't preclude you from doing it at any time, but once it takes place on September 1st, any city would, if they didn't opt out, would be subject to enforcing this regulation, enforcing the statute, and taking applications for these dwellings. So at this time, I think it's worth for us to opt out of this. Tony, that's your opinion as well, opting out of this, for the statute and the application process, and it's something that if needed at a later time, we can certainly discuss it. I haven't had anybody make any inquiry requests to putting up one of these dwellings.
What's going to be something more to police, not necessarily.
Yeah,
police
lots of
department,
building
but,
inspection.
we can't keep up the way it is.
And with that, they do require medical information too, which lands under a whole subject, another subject of data privacy and maintaining those separately from others, because it's not, unless you get into medical information, collecting medical information that's non-privately or non-public data. So there's a lot of other stipulations and concerns on that end as well. So I just don't know if at this time we'd be prepared to handle that.
I read an article in the Tribune on it. That was very detailed, and it sounded like there was a lot of concerns with it. That's not necessarily a bad idea, but it needs to be run through the wash a couple more times before.
I'd like to see some cities do some successful implementation to it. Most of them that responded to the lister inquiry said they were opting out this time. There was not one in that response that said they were looking to do it. I guess they're not responding. These were cities that specifically said they were looking at opting out. Were St. Cloud, Alexandria, Detroit Lakes, Eden Prairie, Savage, and opting out.
Any questions on that one? Anybody got anything under other?
Greg Kimmon did want me to ask to remind you about the planning commission meeting on the 4th to talk about the comprehensive plan.
Anyone else?
Mr. President, may I make a comment, since you're asking for public input?
No, we weren't talking for public input, thank you. That's Thursday night, public hearing.
No, not that, but
So John, on this whole deal with the cable franchise fee,
Yes.
should we just need some kind of action to discontinue our service with Charter?
We are
Looking for it tonight,
we're currently in renegotiations with Charter for the franchise agreement. And Charter has responded to us, Bob Bowes, the attorney that Ron quoted, and myself, as to that they can continue operating beyond the terms of the franchise if they're meeting the existing terms of the franchise and we're actively renegotiating. So that is something that we are currently progressing. So their legal opinion is that they can maintain the franchise as long as they're meeting the criteria within the franchise. They can continue existing and renegotiate. So
I would think there's gotta be some kind of provisions in there just to up and shut everybody's cable off throughout the city.
We have a meeting next Monday too.
It has been discussed in my first day here, we were talking about the cable branch, and not thinking at that time it was expected, so I can't speak to how much, you know, in long, big details before that, other than being not for me. But we are actively discussing it, sharp evaluation conference calls and all of that, so. There are some key public input things and concerns that we have that we were trying to address with them before we can even settle on the terms of the contract agreement. So,
Perfect.
okay.
Anyone else under other? Hearing none, we'll adjourn to 7:30, the regular meeting.
I am in favor of chickens in town, and I was one of the few people that attended the hearings then. But you asked for public input. While you're all here, I want to state that I'm in favor of that, and I did attend those hearings and voiced my support of Hannah Villette's request years ago.